Okay, so we're diving into the differences between binge eating and overeating, and it's a good time to talk about it, right?
Right.
Holidays coming up, people are going to be around lots of food.
Yeah.
Temptation is everywhere. We've got this awesome article, The Difference Between Binge Eating and Overeating from Very Well Mind,
Mm.
to help guide us. So let's jump in.
It's something that most people, I think, have probably experienced at some point or another.
Yeah, definitely.
But how do we know when it crosses the line?
Right.
When does it become more serious?
Yeah, and that's what we want to kind of unpack here. So binge eating, first of all,
Yeah.
let's define it, right? We all know that feeling, you've had a crazy day, you miss lunch, you come home, there's that bag of chips, you're like, okay, I'll just have a couple. Next thing you know, the bag's gone and you feel terrible.
Right.
Like physically ill.
The guilt.
The guilt, that sense of just completely losing control and eating with way more than you would normally.
Yeah.
And then the wave of guilt and disgust afterward. That's kind of the...
Mm-hmm. And shame.
And shame, yeah. That's kind of like the hallmark of a binge eating episode.
It is. It's not just that you ate a lot of food.
Right.
It's that feeling of, I can't stop myself.
Right.
Even though I know I should. I know I'm full, but I
Yeah.
can't stop myself.
Right. Like you're powerless
Yes.
to stop. Yeah.
Powerless.
And this is something, it's not just a one-time thing.
Right. It's a pattern.
Right. It happens repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how is that different from, let's say, going back for seconds at Thanksgiving? I think we've all been there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You have another slice of pie. Is that binge eating? I don't know. Help me understand this.
Yeah. So really the difference is in the feeling that you have during the eating.
Okay.
So overeating might be, you go back for that second slice of pie.
Mm-hmm.
You're enjoying it. You might even feel a little uncomfortably full afterwards.
Mm.
But with binge eating, there's this sense of urgency, almost a frenzy,
Okay,
to eat as much as you can before you can stop yourself, even if you're already feeling sick.
Wow.
And then that shame and the guilt might lead to hiding food or eating in secret.
Yeah, that makes it so much more than just like, oh, I had a good meal. Like that's really heartbreaking to imagine, actually.
It is.
Yeah.
Feeling so...
And a lot of people think it's just a willpower thing, just stop.
Right.
But it's not.
That's a real...
It's an actual medical condition
Okay.
called binge eating disorder, or BED.
So it's an actual diagnosis.
Yes.
Okay.
Interesting.
It is. So like outlined in that.
Yes, the DSM-5.
Yeah.
That's what mental health professionals use.
Okay. Got it.
So there's criteria for diagnosis. So for example, you have at least one binge eating episode per week for 3 months
Okay.
or more. And there's a significant distress that goes along with it.
So the distress part is that like the guilt and the shame and all that stuff.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
The guilt, the shame, anxiety, depression,
Yeah.
all tied into those episodes.
Wow.
And it's a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
So some folks have milder symptoms, fewer episodes.
Huh.
Other folks might experience 14 or more times a week.
Wow, that's a huge range.
It is.
Okay, so what causes this? What causes this disorder?
Well, researchers are still trying to figure it out.
Okay.
There's no one root cause.
Right.
But we do know a couple of things. Genetics could play a role.
Okay.
So there could be this hereditary predisposition to BED.
Mm.
Also having a family history of eating disorders, any kind,
Okay.
can increase the likelihood.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting, BED often co-occurs with other mental health conditions like depression, anxiety,
Oh,
or
interesting.
substance use disorders.
So it might be part of a bigger picture than just
Exactly.
the food.
It's multifaceted.
Okay. So treatment then. I mean, if you think you're struggling with this, what can you do?
Well, first of all, seek professional help. That's the most important thing. And there are really two main approaches.
Okay, let's hear about them.
So the first is psychotherapy.
Okay.
And there's two types that have been proven to be really effective: cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT,
Okay.
and interpersonal therapy, IPT.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about both of those.
Sure. So CBT, what it does is it helps you identify and change negative thoughts and behaviors that lead to binge eating.
Okay.
So, for example, if you have the thought like, oh, I already blew my diet, I might as well eat everything.
Yeah.
CBT helps you change that
Okay.
to like, okay, I can make a different choice now.
So it's like rewiring how you
Yeah.
respond to food cues, essentially.
Exactly.
Got it.
And then IPT focuses on addressing interpersonal issues
Okay.
that might be fueling the binge eating.
Okay.
So it could be relationship struggles, communication problems, or even low self-esteem.
So it recognizes that it's not just about the food. It's like mental, emotional well-being, all that.
The whole
Okay, okay. What about medication?
So medication can be helpful in addition to therapy.
Okay.
And depending on the individual and their symptoms, doctors might prescribe antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds, or even appetite suppressants. There's also a medication called Vyvanse
Okay.
that was originally for ADHD, but now it's FDA approved for BAD as well.
Oh, interesting. So it's like a very personalized approach is key here.
It is. It is.
Are there things people can do kind of in addition to those, like day-to-day things to kind of help manage this?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So one of the big things is recognizing your hunger cues.
Oh.
A lot of times people binge eat when they become overly hungry. So it's important to eat before you get to that point.
It's like stopping a forest fire before it starts.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Right.
And thinking about trigger foods.
Oh, yeah.
Those foods that, if they're around, you're going to end up.
Down the rabbit hole.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you know that like a certain type of cookie is your weakness, just don't keep them in the house.
Okay, yeah. Out of sight, out of mind, right?
Exactly.
Got it. So it's setting yourself up for success. Okay, what else?
And when you do eat, practice mindful eating.
Okay.
So focus on your food, savor each bite, pay attention to your body's signals of fullness, put away your phone, turn off the TV.
Be present in the moment. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, I like that.
Another thing that can be really helpful is to keep a food journal. So track what you eat, when you eat it, how much, and most importantly, how you're feeling before, during, and after you eat.
So you can start to see those connections.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you become a detective for your own behavior.
I like that.
And finally, remember that boredom can be a big trigger for emotional eating, which often leads to overeating or binging.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So find activities that you enjoy, things that bring you joy and purpose.
Keep yourself busy, keep your mind occupied.
Yes.
Well,
hobbies, spending time with loved ones, exercising.
things that make you feel good.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I like that.
And for anyone feeling lost or overwhelmed, the article reminds us about the National Eating Disorders Association helpline.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, you can call them at 1-800-931-2237.
Okay.
They offer support and guidance.
So you don't have to go through this alone.
Exactly.
There is help available.
Yes.
Okay, so we covered a lot of ground, but let's recap really quickly. What's the difference between overeating and binge eating?
Okay, so overeating happens to almost everyone.
Right.
It's having that extra slice of pie, maybe feeling a little too full.
But with binge eating?
With binge eating, you feel out of control.
Okay.
During the eating, you consume much more food than you normally would in a shorter amount of time.
Yeah.
And you feel shame, guilt, or disgust.
And it's probably not something that you want to tell people about.
Right. You're hiding it. You're eating in secret.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's a big distinction.
Yeah, that's a really big distinction. Okay, so if you recognize these patterns in yourself or someone you care about,
what should you do?
reach out for support.
Yeah.
Whether that's a trusted friend, family member, or a professional.
Yeah.
That first step is so important.
Okay, awesome. We're going to take a quick break and be back to talk a little bit more about this complex topic.
Sounds good.
All right, we're back. And, I've heard a little bit about this connection between binge eating and ADHD, and it always seemed like kind of separate issues to me, but is there something to that?
There is, yeah. Research suggests that there's a higher prevalence of binge eating among individuals with ADHD.
Specifically binge eating?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting.
So not just any eating disorder, but binge eating.
Got it.
So why is that?
Yeah, why?
Well, one theory is that the impulsivity that we see with ADHD might be a driving force in those episodes.
Okay.
So if someone has trouble with impulse control, it might be harder for them to regulate their eating habits.
Got it, yeah. Especially when faced with tempting foods.
Yeah, so their stop button isn't working as well.
Exactly.
Okay.
And another theory is that some individuals with ADHD might turn to food as a way to self-medicate.
Okay, so explain that a little bit.
So folks with ADHD often have difficulty with focus, attention, emotional regulation.
Right.
And eating certain foods, especially high in sugar or carbs, can actually provide a temporary dopamine rush.
Okay.
So they feel good.
That feel good, yeah.
Yeah, that neurotransmitter, dopamine. So like they're trying to get that dopamine hit.
Through food.
through food
Yeah.
to kind of cope with the challenges of ADHD.
So it's like a quick fix, a temporary
Yes.
sort of Band-Aid.
Temporary fix.
Okay.
But it's important to remember this connection between ADHD and binge eating is still being researched.
Right.
More research is needed to
Okay.
really understand it.
So what if you think you're dealing with both? Like, you think you might have ADHD and you think you might have binge eating disorder?
Yeah, seek professional help.
Okay.
So you can get an accurate diagnosis for both.
Got it.
Because your treatment approach is going to need to address
Both sides of it.
both the ADHD and the binge eating.
A two-pronged approach.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. So any other insights from the article about different types of, like, I guess, binge eating or overeating?
Yeah, well, the article really makes a distinction between what we might call like normal overeating versus a true binge eating episode.
Okay, yeah.
Especially with the holidays coming up.
Right.
You know, we might have moments of overindulgence.
Yeah.
But overeating on its own isn't a problem.
Okay.
It happens.
Holiday meals, you're having that extra serving of mashed potatoes.
Exactly.
Okay.
You're finishing that bag of chips during a movie.
Yeah.
Those are common.
That's not a disorder.
Not a disorder.
Okay, good. Good to know.
It's about the frequency, the intensity, and how you feel.
Associated with that, not just the amount.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, the article even suggests some questions you can ask yourself.
Oh, okay.
So if you're concerned, ask yourself, you know, do I consistently eat much larger amounts than other people would in a similar situation?
Got it.
And how do I feel after I overeat?
Mm-hmm.
Am I just comfortably full?
Yeah.
Or do I feel guilty, disgusted, or out of control?
Those are good questions to ask yourself.
They are, yeah.
Okay, so occasional overeating might be harmless.
Right.
But if you're seeing this pattern, pay attention.
Be mindful.
Reach out if you need to.
Exactly.
Okay, good advice. So, like, what are some of the signs, then, that are really red flags?
Yeah.
That it's more than just, oh, I had a little too much pie.
So one of the really big ones is the speed at which food is consumed during a binge.
Okay.
It's not just eating a lot.
Right.
It's eating it incredibly fast. Almost frantically.
Like you can't get it in fast enough.
Exactly.
Okay.
Followed by that shame and guilt and regret.
Yeah.
Which can be so intense.
Right.
That people with BED will often hide their behavior.
Eat alone.
Eat alone. Eat in secret.
Yeah.
To avoid judgment.
That's tough.
It is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shame.
A lot of shame and secrecy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the article even says some individuals might even resort to stealing food.
Wow.
Because of that shame.
Yeah.
And the secrecy around their behavior.
It's a lot more serious than I think people realize sometimes.
It is. It is.
Okay. So what's it like? Like, what's happening inside mentally when someone's going through this?
Well, it's described as a feeling of a complete loss of control.
Okay.
Almost like your body's acting on its own without your mind wanting it to.
That's scary
It is.
to think about. Like your body's just taking over.
Yeah, you're just on autopilot.
Wow.
And unlike someone who's just overeating and stops when they're full, someone in a binge might continue eating even while they're feeling disgust or regret.
Yeah, like they can't stop.
They can't.
Oh, that's awful.
It is.
And the article says this feeling of being out of control often extends beyond the eating.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, they might be preoccupied with thoughts of food.
Okay.
Planning their next binge.
Yeah.
Anxious about not being able to control their eating.
Yeah, so it's really affecting their lives.
It is, and their relationships and their work.
Wow.
It can be really exhausting and isolating.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
And it sounds like professional help is really, really important.
It's to breaking that cycle.
Break that cycle, yeah. Okay. But those tips we talked about, like, you know, those kind of everyday strategies, are those still useful?
Absolutely.
Even for someone with a diagnosed eating disorder?
Yes. Things like recognizing your hunger cues, managing your trigger foods, practicing mindful eating.
Do those really make a difference?
They can, yeah. It's about equipping yourself with the tools to navigate those difficult moments.
So you can take control.
Exactly.
I like that.
Recovery is not a straight line.
Right.
There will be ups and downs.
Setbacks.
Setbacks.
But it's possible.
It's possible.
To break free.
To break free from BED. Yeah.
So let's talk about those tips. Let's unpack those a little bit.
Okay.
So recognizing hunger cues.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean?
So recognizing hunger cues is all about becoming attuned to your body's natural signals of hunger and fullness.
Okay.
It's about listening to your body, not external cues.
Okay, so not just like, oh, it's lunchtime.
Exactly.
So I guess I should eat.
Yeah, or everyone else is eating.
Or I'm bored.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
It's about really listening to your body.
Okay, but how do you know if it's like real physical hunger
Yeah.
or if it's just like emotional hunger?
Well, that's the tricky part, right?
Right.
It takes practice
Okay.
and self-awareness.
Yeah.
So think about like those classic hunger pangs,
Okay.
that empty, gnawing sensation.
Like your stomach's growling.
Yeah.
Okay.
You might notice a drop in energy,
Okay.
feeling a little sluggish or tired.
Mm-hmm.
As it intensifies. You might even get a slight headache or have trouble concentrating.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So those are all physical.
Physical symptoms.
Yeah, not just thoughts or cravings.
Got it.
And true physical hunger comes on gradually.
Okay.
Not all of a sudden.
Okay, that's a good distinction.
Yeah.
But what about that, like, I think we've all had that feeling where it's like, I feel hungry, but, it's like a craving, an emotional thing. Like, what are the signs of that?
So emotional hunger often hits you suddenly
Okay.
and intensely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually triggered by a specific emotion, like stress, sadness, boredom.
Not an actual need for food.
Not a need for food.
Okay.
It's about seeking comfort or distraction.
Okay.
And oftentimes it's cravings for specific foods. It's like loaded with sugar, fat, or salt.
Yeah. Those things that make you feel good temporarily.
Yeah, because they give you that mood boost.
Like chocolate or potato chips or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
And unlike physical hunger, emotional hunger often doesn't go away, even after you eat.
Even after you've eaten. Oh, that's interesting.
Its craving lingers.
So it's like a more persistent hunger.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Not as satisfying.
Okay. Got it. So it's about learning to tell the difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can make healthier choices.
Good advice.
What else?
So another big one is removing those trigger foods from your environment.
Yeah, we touched on that earlier.
We did.
But give me some more.
So it's not about labeling foods as good or bad.
Okay.
It's about knowing what your personal kryptonite is.
Yeah.
So it's personalized.
That makes sense.
And it's about making it easier to make healthy choices.
Okay.
By minimizing temptation.
Okay.
So if that cookie is your weakness.
Don't keep him in the house.
Yeah. Like we said before, out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly.
If you're craving something, try and find a healthier alternative.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So instead of that bag of candy, maybe you have a piece of fruit.
Yeah, or some yogurt.
Yeah.
Something to satisfy that sweet tooth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then mindful eating.
Oh, yeah. What does that look like?
So it's bringing your complete attention to the experience of eating.
Okay.
Without judgment or distraction.
Okay.
So engage all your senses, savor each bite, be present in the moment.
So you're really like tasting it, smelling it, looking at it.
The colors, the textures, the aromas.
Yeah. Okay, so not just shoveling it in while you're watching TV.
Exactly.
Got it. And paying attention to your fullness cues.
Yes. Yep.
Knowing when to stop.
Even if there's food left.
Even if there's food left.
Okay. Good advice.
Yeah, it's about breaking free from autopilot.
Yeah.
And making conscious choices. So instead of like snacking while you're watching TV, you're actually sitting down.
Sitting down at the table.
And eating.
Yeah, no distractions.
Okay.
Being mindful.
I like that. What else?
So keeping a food journal could be really helpful.
Yeah, we talked about that before.
We did.
But remind me, what should I be tracking?
Track what you eat, when you eat it, how much, but also pay attention to your mood.
Okay.
Any emotions you're feeling before, during, and after eating.
So it's like the emotional context of your eating habits.
Yeah, so you can really start to understand
those connections.
Okay. So you can figure out like
the patterns.
Yeah, what situations, what times a day, what emotions might be triggering.
Okay, so it gives you that information so you can start to make changes.
Exactly.
Okay, I like it. Last tip.
Last tip is find ways to beat boredom.
Okay.
Boredom can be a major trigger.
That makes sense.
For emotional eating.
Right.
Which then leads to overeating or binging.
Got it. Okay.
So find activities that keep you engaged and fulfilled.
Okay.
Whether that's hobbies, spending time with loved ones, exercising, exploring new interests.
Yeah, things that make you feel good.
Exactly.
Keep you busy instead of just mindlessly eating.
Mm.
Okay, I like that. So those are just some starting points.
Yeah, just starting points.
Recovery from BD is complex.
Very complex.
And it's an individual journey. So professional guidance is key. But these are good things.
They're helpful.
To keep in mind.
Yeah, to help manage those urges and prevent those episodes.
Okay, so regaining a sense of control.
Exactly.
I like that. Good stuff. All right, we're going to take another quick break and come back to wrap things up.
Sounds good.
We're back. And, before we wrap up, I want to kind of circle back to something you said earlier about BED.
Hmm.
Not just being about food.
Right,
Like,
right.
it's more than that.
Yeah, the article really stresses that point, that while managing your food and developing those healthier eating habits is important,
Right.
addressing the underlying
Yeah.
emotional and psychological factors is super important
Okay.
for long-term recovery.
So it's like, it's not just what you eat. It's
Yeah.
understanding why you're eating.
The why.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's where therapy can be really helpful.
Yeah.
It's that safe space to really unpack those deeper issues, things like
Yeah.
negative body image, low self-esteem, maybe past trauma that might be contributing to the binge eating.
So getting to the root of the problem,
Root. Exactly.
not just addressing the symptoms.
Exactly. It's about healing on a deeper level.
I like that. Yeah. And I imagine that takes time.
It does. It does.
And patience.
Patience, self-compassion.
Yeah.
There will be ups and downs.
Setbacks.
Setbacks, yeah.
That's normal.
Totally normal. Part of the process.
Okay.
And having a support system is really important.
Yeah.
Whether that's a therapist, a support group, friends, family.
People you can turn to.
Yeah, people you can lean on.
Yeah. For encouragement.
When things get tough.
Exactly.
Okay, and speaking of support, I think it's a good time to remind everyone about the National Eating Disorders Association helpline.
Yes, it's a great resource.
If you're struggling, you can reach them at 1-800-931-2237.
That's right.
Okay, and they offer confidential support for anybody
Anyone.
dealing with an eating disorder.
Yes. BED included.
You don't have to go through this alone.
Absolutely not.
There's help out there.
Yes.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap up this deep dive
Mm-hmm.
into binge eating disorder, I want to leave you with this.
Okay.
This is a complex condition.
It is.
It has serious implications,
Yes.
but it is treatable.
It is.
Recovery is possible.
Absolutely.
There's hope.
There is. Yeah.
You are not defined by this disorder.
You are worthy of love, compassion, and support.
That's a good message.
Thank you.
So as you're navigating, the holiday season coming up or any time, really, when food feels challenging.
Just remember to approach your eating habits with mindfulness.
Yes.
Self-compassion.
Yeah. Be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
It's a journey.
It's a journey.
Not a destination.
And if you're struggling, reach out.
Reach out. You don't have to do this alone.
There are resources and people who want to help.
Absolutely.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive into binge eating disorder. We hope you found it insightful. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.